12 years on that set changed everything for Kaley Cuoco, Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, Simon Helberg, and the rest of the cast. But when the sitcom ended, the quiet truth began to surface. Careers that once looked unstoppable suddenly faced fear, uncertainty, and reinvention. Some stars walked away from Hollywood entirely, while others discovered new sides of themselves they never expected to show. And behind the smiles that defined a generation of TV, there were battles with identity, mental health, personal loss, and the pressure of living in the shadow of the biggest role of their lives. Today, each of them stands in a completely different place from where they started. And for some, the cost of getting there was far heavier than fans ever imagined. Kaley Cuoco, the girl next door who refused to disappear. When The Big Bang Theory ended in 2019, Kaley Cuoco suddenly found herself without Penny, the character that had shaped her entire adult life. For the first time in 12 years, the laughter stopped, and she admitted she was terrified nothing she did next would ever compare. But instead of fading into sitcom nostalgia, she rebuilt herself from the ground up. In 2020, she launched Yes, Norman Productions, and bet her career on a role nobody expected her to take, Cassie Bowden in The Flight Attendant. It was chaotic, painful, messy, everything Penny never was. And for Kaley, it was the proof she needed that she could survive outside the safety of a live audience. The series earned her Emmy and Golden Globe nominations, turning what could have been the end of her career into a rebirth. She pushed even further, stepping into dark comedy with Based on a True Story in 2023, romantic fantasy in Meet Cute, and expanding her voice career with Harley Quinn. But success came with its own strain. She openly admitted she struggled with the sudden emptiness after the sitcom ended, and Penny's final storyline, especially the unexpected pregnancy, left her disappointed. Still, she kept moving, taking risks instead of running back to what was safe. In 2023, she became a mother to her daughter Matilda with actor Tom Pelphrey, joking that caring for her felt like managing a drunk best friend. And now, she is preparing for her most ambitious transformation yet, stepping into the life of Doris Day for an upcoming biographical series. Every step has pulled her farther away from the comfort of Penny, yet closer to the actress she always wanted to be. Jim Parsons, the man who walked away from perfection. When Kaley Cuoco was rebuilding her identity, Jim Parsons was quietly carrying a burden of his own. For 12 seasons, Sheldon Cooper had defined him, a character so precise, so iconic, that separating the actor from the role felt nearly impossible. At the height of his fame in 2018, CBS placed a $50 million offer in front of him to keep the show alive. But Jim felt something shifting: exhaustion, emotional heaviness, and the sense that pushing further would break him. Turning down that offer effectively ended the series, and although he later explained it was the right decision, he admitted the choice came during one of the most vulnerable periods of his life. After the show wrapped in 2019, Jim tried to rediscover himself beyond the rigid lines of Sheldon's world. He stayed connected as narrator and executive producer of Young Sheldon, but he knew he needed to step into new territory. In 2020, he did exactly that with Hollywood, portraying Henry Wilson, a powerful, manipulative agent whose darkness stood in complete contrast to the socially awkward physicist fans adored. The performance earned him new critical praise and forced audiences to see him differently. He kept pushing, starring in the emotional drama Spoiler Alert in 2022, and by 2024, he made a full return to the stage, taking on the role of the stage manager in Our Town on Broadway. For an actor who once commanded $1 million per sitcom episode, returning to live theater was a deliberate act of humility, a way to reconnect with storytelling stripped of fame and spectacle. That same year, he worked alongside Jessica Lange in Mother Play, proving he could hold his own in demanding dramatic roles. Through it all, Jim remained grounded in his personal life. He and his husband, Todd Spywak, whom he married in 2017 after more than a decade together, continued running their production company, producing stories that uplift underrepresented voices. Though fans frequently ask whether he will ever return as Sheldon, Jim has been honest. It is unlikely, yet he never gives a firm no. In his words, "Life is long, God willing." For now, he is choosing the version of himself that exists beyond the chalkboards, equations, and catchphrases, even if the world still remembers him as the man who perfected them. Simon Helberg, the unlikely star who almost never got the role. While Jim Parsons was redefining himself through theater and drama, Simon Helberg was confronting a truth that had haunted him long before The Big Bang Theory ended. For 12 years, he played Howard Wolowitz, the loud, eccentric engineer with the questionable fashion choices, but behind the scenes, Simon battled something much quieter and far more painful. During the early years of the show, he struggled with obsessive-compulsive disorder, so severe that he once described curling into a fetal position in his dressing room, overwhelmed with anxiety despite the success happening all around him. Fame had arrived quickly, but feeling worthy of it took much longer. After the sitcom ended in 2019, Simon faced a dilemma that every comedic actor dreads, escaping the shadow of a character that millions of viewers believed was the real him. Instead of retreating, he dove into roles that challenged everything audiences thought they knew about him. In 2021, he stunned critics in Annette, a dark musical drama starring Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard. His commitment was so intense that he even went through the process of becoming a French citizen to support the film's production, a step that ultimately wasn't required, but showed just how far he was willing to go to prove himself. He continued to push into unfamiliar territory with Poker Face in 2023, appearing as a clueless FBI agent who balanced absurdity with sincerity. The performance reminded fans that beneath Howard's jokes was a performer capable of nuance and surprising emotional depth. Years earlier, he had already demonstrated this versatility with a Golden Globe-nominated performance in Florence Foster Jenkins, acting alongside Meryl Streep and Hugh Grant. Then came the revelation that shook even him. In 2022, Simon learned that he was never supposed to play Howard at all. Kevin Sussman, the man fans would later know as Stuart the comic book store owner, had originally been cast for the role, but was forced to drop out because of contractual conflicts. For more than a decade, Simon never knew he had stepped into a part meant for someone else. When he finally discovered the truth, he responded with humility and gratitude, recognizing how differently his life might have turned out. Johnny Galecki, the star who stepped out of the spotlight. While Simon Helberg wrestled with the pressure of success, Johnny Galecki was facing a different kind of struggle, the realization that he no longer wanted the life he had built in Hollywood. For 12 years, he played Leonard Hofstadter, the anxious yet hopeful physicist whose romance with Penny became the emotional spine of the series. But when The Big Bang Theory ended in 2019, Johnny didn't chase the next big role or plan a carefully crafted comeback. Instead, he slipped quietly into a life far away from red carpets and studio lots, choosing privacy over fame in a way few stars of his caliber ever do. After a brief return as David Healy on The Conners, Johnny stepped behind the camera to develop A-OK, a sitcom set in 1991 about the early struggles of an internet startup. It was his attempt to tell stories rather than perform them, signaling a shift toward producing and away from the character-driven fame that had defined him for over a decade. He also explored independent films, selecting projects based on creative fulfillment rather than box office potential. But the biggest changes in his life weren't professional. They were personal. In late 2019, he welcomed a son, Orbison, with Elena Meyer, only for the relationship to end a year later. The emotional toll of a breakup while adjusting to fatherhood pushed him further into seclusion. A few years later, he quietly married Morgan Galecki, and in 2023, they had a daughter, Una Evelina. Instead of announcing the wedding with fanfare, Johnny mentioned it casually, almost reluctantly, as if he had grown allergic to attention. He left Los Angeles entirely, settling in Nashville where the pace was slower, the expectations lighter, and the pressure of being Leonard no longer followed him everywhere. Yet even during his years on The Big Bang Theory, Johnny carried silent burdens. In 2011, he suffered from Bell's palsy, temporarily losing movement on one side of his face. He continued filming anyway, hiding the paralysis from viewers to maintain the illusion of Leonard's cheerful persistence. He also faced backlash after publicly supporting gun control in 2018, a stance that cost him thousands of followers, but revealed a willingness to stand by his convictions, even when unpopular. There were strange moments, too. The chewing gum wall on set, a secret he kept for years, and his surprising confession that he was the only cast member to have a sexual encounter in his dressing room. These details made him human, flawed, complicated. Proof that behind the soft-spoken physicist was a man trying to figure out where he belonged once the audience laughter stopped. Kunal Nayyar, the man who refused to be typecast. As Johnny Galecki stepped away from the spotlight, Kunal Nayyar was running straight toward the unknown. For 12 seasons, he had been the shy, awkward Rauch, the romantic underdog who struggled to speak to women without a drink in his hand. While the world laughed at Raj's quirks, Kunal worried that the character's innocence would trap him forever. When The Big Bang Theory ended in 2019, he realized he faced a crossroads. Either break free from Hollywood's expectations or risk being remembered only as the sweet astrophysicist who couldn't hold a conversation. Kunal chose the harder road. In 2020, he shocked fans with his performance in Criminal UK playing Sandeep, a cold, calculating serial killer. There was nothing humorous or soft about the character, and that was the point. The role earned him a BAFTA nomination and forced casting directors to see him in a new light. It was the kind of transformation most sitcom actors only dream of, but few dare to attempt. He continued pushing boundaries with Suspicion, starring opposite Uma Thurman in a tense thriller that showcased his ability to balance vulnerability with menace. And in 2024, he proved he could still charm audiences in lighter stories with the romantic comedy How to Date Billy Walsh, while also reuniting with Melissa Rauch for an emotional guest appearance on Night Court. Publicly, Kunal laughed about teasing Melissa for her outfit, but privately, the reunion reminded him how deeply that old chapter still lived within him. His next leap might be his boldest yet, portraying Scrooge in Christmas Karma, a Bollywood-inspired reimagining of A Christmas Carol. It is the kind of role that demands emotional and cultural complexity, and Kunal has embraced it wholeheartedly, seeing it as a chance to honor both his Indian heritage and his evolution as an actor. Animation has remained an important part of his journey. His performances as Guy Diamond in Trolls and Gupta in Ice Age, Continental Drift, gave him a global audience far beyond sitcom fans. Meanwhile, his memoir, Yes, My Accent is Real, and his stage work in The Spoils proved he was just as compelling off-screen as on it. Still, not every moment has been smooth. His silence during the 2023 controversy over a Big Bang Theory scene involving a Bollywood joke-stirred debate in India, and his parking habits during filming became an unexpected inside joke among the cast. Yet through it all, Kunal kept moving forward quietly, steadily, with a determination that mirrored Raj's search for identity, but this time without comedic exaggeration. Melissa Rauch, the comedian who fought for her place. While Kunal Nayyar was reinventing himself through bold, dramatic choices, Melissa Rauch was fighting a quieter, more personal battle, one that began long before The Big Bang Theory ended. When she joined the cast in 2009, she wasn't a star. She was a struggling stand-up comic performing in cramped clubs, barely scraping by and hoping someone would give her a break. Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz was that break, but the role did not come with instant confidence or security. Melissa had to prove she could carry her weight in a show already dominated by massive personalities. As the years passed, Bernadette evolved from a guest character to one of the core emotional anchors of the series. Yet while fans adored her sharp wit and deceptively sweet voice, Melissa was wrestling with deeper questions about her place in the industry. She feared becoming typecast and disappearing the moment the sitcom ended. A fear rooted in how late her career had started and how quickly everything could slip away again. Instead of waiting for roles, she created them. In 2015, she co-wrote, co-produced, and starred in The Bronze, a daring, messy, and often uncomfortable exploration of failure, ego, and emotional stagnation. Producers didn't want her in the lead. They wanted a bigger name. Melissa fought for the part anyway, and Sundance audiences saw a version of her no sitcom could have revealed. The film wasn't universally praised, but her performance was undeniable. Raw, flawed, human. After The Big Bang Theory ended in 2019, she turned her focus inward. She and her husband, writer Winston Beigel, welcomed their children, Sadie and Brooks, and Melissa stepped back briefly to protect that fragile new chapter of her life. But creativity pulled her back. In 2023, she returned as the lead and executive producer of NBC's Night Court, stepping into a legacy role while reshaping it for a new generation. The show balanced humor with deeper storylines, including her character's quiet struggle with alcoholism, a storyline Melissa approached with empathy and restraint. She continued voice acting, writing children's books about healthy eating, and running her production company with her husband. And through every project, she carried the same grit she had when she first walked onto the Big Bang set. A determination to build a career on her own terms, not one limited by anyone else's imagination. Every member of the Big Bang Theory cast walked away from the same ending, but none of them walked into the same future. Some chased reinvention, some sought peace, and others chose to disappear from the noise entirely. Their stories prove that the greatest transformations often happen after the spotlight fades. Which cast member's journey surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories behind your favorite stars.